Let's go. Welcome to the main event. Applying pressure, but I promise I ain't make it then. In their heads, living free, I ain't paying rent. Wake up in the AM, making G's like Mercedes-Benz. Whoa, yeah, please don't take it.
Welcome to the Pinnacle Living Podcast, helping you get to the pinnacle of both life and business. Today we're joined by Mr. Kelly Vincent.
Sir.
How you doing, bro? Good to see you.
I'm doing good. Good to see you.
Dude, you're one of those people I'm always happy to talk to, bro.
Thank you.
And always in a good mood, it feels like. And but dude, I'm really excited to get into this one because you recently, not too long ago, you were on an agency call. And so some of our agents got to hear your story, but I, heard about it from you and from Holly beforehand, and I just love and I love your story, dude. So tell people a little bit about yourself. Where do you come from?
Yeah.
What's your come up story?
So out of high school, originally I was born and raised out of Owensboro, Kentucky.
Okay.
That's where me and Holly Newton there, was raised, and going into college. So I didn't really know what direction to take. I was thinking my dad owned a electrical business. Okay, maybe I should go that route, maybe in the ministry. So my dad sent me to West Coast Baptist College.
Okay.
When I got there, I played basketball throughout high school. So I was a basketball player for them for a year. And they didn't really have any business, management courses. It was all, Bible studies.
Sure. More like a seminary school.
Yeah, seminary school. And so I just got a year, an associate's for I think it was just, I don't even know. It's been such a long time. But,
Putting it to good use.
Putting it to good use, right. A little bit of photography, some other electives. But I was there for a year, transferred to PCC.
Okay.
Pinnacle Christian College.
Okay.
Tried to play ball for them. Didn't make it. Grades wasn't adding up. Credits and everything. I didn't really take school seriously. I was just kind of there just to play basketball and figure out, what direction I wanted to take.
Sure.
And it was the third semester at PCC, and I got COVID for 2 weeks, and I was doing basketball tryouts, and I rolled both of my ankles.
Oh, no.
And so going into basketball tryouts, just put icy hot and took a bunch of ibuprofen. Like, okay, let's do this. I can make the team. Didn't happen. And so at that time, I was like, okay, what direction do I need to take? Spoke to my parents about it because they were paying my way throughout college at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And Dad was like, okay, maybe college isn't for you. Let's see if you can do the electrical trade, put you through a trading school, try to get your internship for licensing.
Sure.
Like being an electrician. So I did that once I dropped out of college. And then at that point, I was kind of born and raised in the electrical business. And it was just never not necessarily a cup of tea. I was good at it. I was like a robot when it came to it just because I was born and raised into it. I was 12 years old, Dad teaching us how to work hard, right? Yeah. So, I greatly appreciate for those times. And, I just I don't know what direction I wanted to take. And so a buddy of mine, him and his friends got into the solar industry. Mm-hmm. And they're like, bro, you can sit at your desk at home for 5 hours a day. Just go through inbound calls, bro. Easy leads, quality leads, and you just book appointments for the closers, and you get a base pay of $20 an hour, and bonuses depending on how many appointments you set. And I was like, okay, it sounds nice, better than working in an attic, 100 degrees, doing electrical work. So I did that, got into setting appointments, and that was kind of my first introduction to sales. And it's funny because I tell people that's kind of why I'm really big on dialing for me and my people in the insurance industry, because I would be going through 300 inbound calls. I would be on a dialer. You'd hear beep, boom, I'm in a call. And then I have to dispo it as not interested or book it out for the closer. Then boom, 5 seconds later, I get another call. Okay. There's barely any breaks in between. Sure. So I go through 300 inbound calls and, go through all the not interested, and these leads, honestly, were probably about 3-year-old leads. They were
people calling in for solar, or was it calling in for something else? They supposedly
called in, so I don't even know where they got the leads. They're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm in an apartment, things like that. So, and at that point, we were hungry for those appointment bonuses, so we were trying to shove it down their throat. And this is what's funny, too. I was telling Angel and Malak about this yesterday. Uh-huh. If they were interested in solar, we were being recorded. So we would have to upsell.
Okay.
to windows,
Oh.
gutters,
Got it.
bathroom remodels. So like, okay, you're not interested in solar. All right. Well,
They're
we
like,
do
look,
have some
buddy, I'm in an apartment.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, we can do bathroom remodels. Is your roof okay? And just go throughout the whole list. So I did that for a year and a half, and I started getting really good on. I noticed how these people would just be so irritated, and I was like, okay. So let me kind of slow down my tone because I didn't really have any like leadership at that time. They kind of just threw us in the fire.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, let me try to like have conversations with these people and see if I can get them on the schedule. And so me and Caleb Mann, I got him on the job too as well. And so we both started getting really good at scheduling appointments. And then Holly at the time was like, okay, you would do an absolute killing in the life insurance industry. And I was actually the first recruit Holly wanted to get into the business.
Okay.
So I'm okay. I'm gonna not mention it to the solar team. I'm just gonna go on the low, and me and Caleb are gonna get our license.
Yeah.
So going through that time, just booking out appointments for solar, and then I started getting to the course, and it was I started taking it, failed it 3 times in a row, and I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong? I know I'm a college dropout. There has to be a way I can pass this test.
Yeah.
5th time, didn't pass it. 10th time, didn't pass it. And then by that time, I moved down to my parents' house as soon as I dropped out. Got my own apartment with Caleb and 2 other guys, and we were all doing the solar thing.
Okay.
Just scheduling out appointments. And, I was living paycheck by paycheck at that time, taking care of rent, had my own car, did my own payments, everything. And I took a break from trying to pass the test just because I truly didn't have money for the $50
Sure.
every time and renew the course and everything.
Yeah.
So me and Caleb decided to go, okay, let's figure this out. Let's see what we need to do. So we did construction for a little bit and then got back into the life insurance test. He passed it about 6 times in, I believe, I think about 6 times. And then I was still going. And I'm like, bro, he's like, dude, I'm about to make sales. Holly's training him. And I'm like, bro, I got to find a way. And at that time, I still don't even know this very day. Somehow, the only bank I was dealing with, I'm not going to say its name, but the only bank I was dealing with, they banned me.
Oh, no.
I didn't have access to any of my money. I had a credit card that I couldn't even pay or have access to pay. So they just blocked me with recurring payments getting charged, bank fees. Long story short, for about 3 months, I didn't have access to any of my money. Even the money in my savings, they're like, yeah, a check's going to come in the mail. Never came. And so I was like calling them constantly trying to get my money. And I was like probably $10,000 in debt at that point. So I moved back to my family's house, and then I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. At that point, it was kind of like a realization. I had a what my parents call a come to Jesus meeting.
Yeah.
Where it's like, God, what do I do from this point?
This was a tough. Let's speak on this for a second, because where you came from and what you've overcome. I mean, I think it's going to speak to a lot of people, because you're looking for your way in life, right? You're like college, basketball, trying to find an opportunity, maybe solar, now maybe insurance. You're failed the test 10 times. You're in a difficult financial situation, coming back to your parents' home, and you said, come to Jesus meeting with your folks. Yeah. And you're a young guy, At
that time I was right at, I want to say 19, 20. I just turned 20.
Yeah. So I think it's a time of tremendous growth. What was the mindset shift, do you think, at that point in your life? Because I would say after this is where we saw a pretty dramatic change. What were some of the decisions that you made at that time? Some of the things that you said to yourself.
Yeah. I'd say the biggest thing was, obviously I had really good people around me, Holly to reach out to, my parents as well. They still supported me at the time. Obviously there's some life decisions that, 20 years old going into 21, I probably should have made, but, I had to straighten some things out. Mentally and kind of spiritually, I had to get myself back in check.
Sure.
So at that point, I was like, dude, why am I still living with my parents? Like, I know I'm better than this.
Yeah.
Kind of conversation with myself. And kind of the pivotal point would probably be once we lost our job with solar. It was coming into my 21st birthday. I had Cameron, which she works with me in the industry right now. She was my girlfriend at the time. We were dating for about 3 months, and so I moved back into the apartment, and then once I lost my solar job, I was like, dude, I'm gonna have to move back to my parents again. And so this was kind of the pivotal point. As soon as I figured out we lost our job, I was like, dude, I'm living paycheck by paycheck. I'm still in debt. I don't know where to go. And within a matter of 30 minutes of losing my job, I was like, okay, I need to lean on the people that trust me. I need to lean on the people I have a good relationship and connection with. A matter of an hour, I had 3 interviews and 2 guaranteed jobs for the coming next week. And, you know, I was at my parents' house at the time. I was house sitting for them. And not going to lie, I walked outside and I was like, dude, what am I doing? And, you know, got on my knees to start praying. And I don't know, it felt like a burden kind of lifted off me. I was like, God, I'm going to do my best to meet you halfway, but I need you to meet me to actually find the success I need in life to, you know, make the connections I need and actually become, you know, somewhat successful and get me out of this, you know, financial hole.
Yeah.
And when I got up, I had those 3 interviews, had 2 jobs guaranteed. I don't know, burden kind of lifted, and Cameron was like, okay, you know, Kelly, you're going to figure it out. You know, I know you're going to figure it out. And I was like, okay. So I was working 3 jobs at that time. Working with my dad, 6 a.m. to noon, and then about 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. I was working at a retail sales for a supplement store. And so I was working that job, and then I was also trying to work solar and make some sales with my brother on the side.
In the evenings.
Exactly. Calling these old leads and everything.
Dude, talk about the hustle. So waking up early to work electrical work with your dad, supplement store in the afternoons, and then solar sales in the evenings.
And then so luckily dad was just paying me in cash. So he was like, okay, you need to figure out what you need to do. I'm not sure if the life insurance is going to be your thing. At that time, I was still trying to get past the test. I was probably 12 times into it.
Yeah.
And still failing.
What was giving you that encouragement to keep going for insurance?
Honestly, it was Holly.
It was Holly.
She would give me a call and be like, okay, we need to figure out your finances so we can set aside money just so you can reschedule that test.
Yeah. And how was she doing in insurance at the time?
Bro, at that time, she was on the road to Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So she was crushing it.
She was crushing it. And that was the time, that was like Mindy. I say it was Mindy in her prime, but Mindy and Holly in their prime. And I joke around with that all the time. But that's whenever they were both on track to hit Hall of Fame. It was like towards the end of, I want to say July. And so Holly would, every time she got a big paycheck, screenshot the bank statement, send it to me. And like, you know, I get, you know, me and Holly still have that competitiveness. And it's just like her rubbing in my face.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, come on. So it honestly made me mad. I was like, come on, I cannot let her beat me. I was like, I'm going to come into this business and I want to beat her. You know, that's the goal. That's the goal. And so that kind of lit a fire into me, and she knew it. She knew it too. You can probably ask her today. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah. And
so she
wasn't going to let you give up.
Exactly. And so going through that, you know, paycheck by paycheck, I would tell Dad in the morning, hey, 11 o'clock, I need to clock out. I'm going to try to pass the test. So going through that, and finally, after working, I had 3 jobs. I was probably working 60 to 65 hours a week and still trying to pass the test at that time. So finally, the 20th time, passed it. Thank God. I was so happy, relieved.
Actually, the 20th time. Number 20.
Number 20, I passed.
Wow.
Number 20, I passed. And so as soon as I passed, I called Holly and I was like, you won't believe it. I was like, you won't believe it. I text Holly and Mindy and I was like, I did it. So they were all excited. We got in contracting. And this is the even more interesting part. So during my contracting period, I didn't have any money for leads. And Holly, this is very unique what Holly did with me. Throughout the entire time of going through and getting into the business, she never really wanted to give me anything for free.
Sure.
I had to earn it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we were raised as kids, too.
Yeah, it's a great way to go through things.
Exactly. And so I'm like, okay, I need to figure this financial situation out. And then so I passed the test, and at that time, I couldn't even make rent the next month. And so I'd ask my friend for money. I didn't get paid out, and this is the crazy part. So the only money I had was was in cash.
Okay.
I had a rent coming up and I had a car payment. All that money in cash I put into the ATM. And I ate my money. Didn't go into my account. I didn't see that money for weeks. Only money to my name. And I had asked my friend to send me money. I had asked my parents. I'm like, listen, I have the money. I'm going to get the direct deposit for my paycheck in like 2 weeks. But the only money I had, the ATM, just ate it. And at that time, I'm like, dude, I passed the test, so things should be looking up. But let's just get through this little hurdle.
Yeah.
So after contracting, getting into the business, during that contracting period, and this is what I tell a lot of new agents that are getting through their course, I started investing myself into the business. I started listening to some podcasts with Mike and Christy's podcast while I'm working with Dad at 6 a.m. to noon. I started listening to sales calls. There's this one guy, I think his name is Ryan Reynolds. He's with, I believe, our previous IMO. Listen to all of his telesales, mortgage protection, selling. Like I was like trying to listen while I'm working too. And I'll call Holly, be like, hey, what does he mean by living benefits? What does this mean? So me and Holly would communicate on trying to get me prepared because I'm like, I need to sell a policy the moment I get into the business and get contracted. And so I'm waiting for these carriers to send me emails, welcome emails. And then at that time, I was like, okay, I need to take a gamble on myself. One of these paychecks, I'm going to spend like $300 on leads. And I got to schedule appointments. And at that time, I could only work on the weekends. I only did like one shift. So on the weekends, I could run like 3 appointments. But during the weekday, I only had like an hour or 2 to dial. And at that time, it was like 7 p.m., 8 p.m.
Yeah.
So I would get all these like cranky people getting off work. And I was running age leads at that point. Got a couple on books for Saturday. Going through the appointments. And didn't sell any the first week, I think. And then the second week, the very first person I sold. And got direct deposited within the next 2 days. I'm okay, this money's going straight back into the business. And so I was really keeping my eye on my finances, making sure I can get some type of cash flow so I can start quitting my other jobs and working to full time.
Yeah.
In that time, that transition took about, 3 months to finally get into full time. And my second biggest policy at that time, it was, I'm pretty sure I told you the story about it. I was working at the retail supplement store, and I had clients coming in or customers coming in, and I was on the phone with a couple, and I'm like, I can sell these people.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the camera because everything's recorded in the store, and I'm like, I'm really close to my sales manager, and I'm like, I text him, I was like, hey, I'm trying to close this deal. I can make a decent money off it. And he knew my financial situation. And so I was like, bro, just tell the customers they walk in, just tell them to grab a snack and just wait for you. Say you're on a point call. So I was doing that. It took me like an hour. Closed the deal. I had 4 customers waiting for me. And at that time, finally when I got deposited from that, I quit that job and ended up quitting my dad's, and that slow transition. But that's kind of the adversity I went through trying to get into the business.
Yeah.
And I look at some agents, I even get some texts from agents like, hey, it's my second time trying to pass the test. I don't know if I can keep on doing this. And I'm like, bro. And I tell them, like, dude, it depends how bad you want this opportunity.
Yeah.
You got to have the determination. You got to have almost an obsession to get into it and pass, that adversity, whether it's the test, financial, or, whatever situation you need to be in to actually set yourself up in the business and get started.
Yeah.
But
dude, there's a lot of lessons that come from in multiple areas. For one, I think the responsibility you took for yourself, is a really important part of your come up, because you're like, floundering, you're like, you kind of checked yourself. Yeah. It's not like you had to talk with your folks. You had a great support system, which is huge. And you're just like, okay, like I need to like go to work here. And you did. You had 3 jobs, going in, and I think a big lesson for everybody who is how much of an encouragement just you writing and doing well is. Like Holly obviously kept on you, but do you think it would have been the same encouragement if Holly was writing a policy here and there? Would it have been the same, but she was writing 30, 40K a month and showing you that? And so you're like, this is out there.
It is.
It's here. It's my sister's doing it.
It
Yeah.
seemed achievable. She made it seem very achievable to the point where it's like, okay, let's just get to the point where I need to be, start writing policies. Things will come to me.
Yeah.
I just got to put in the work at that point.
Dude, what a mind shift it is. And I see this in you and in that time in your life. There's great things in our life we think like, oh, it'd be great to do. And then there's things we think like, oh, we could be doing. Mm-hmm. But when you make that shift in your mind that you should be, and it's obvious from the way that you're talking, you saw what your sister was doing. And it wasn't just that you could be, it's like in your mind, you're like, I should be doing that. Yeah. You're like, I should be. And that really pushed you. Yeah. And to 20 times pass the test, and even in the middle, grinding in between, dialing an hour. Like, dude, if I saw that on paper, I'd be like, this person is not going to make it. But that determination factor, I mean, you said it, that like, I'm going to overcome. I'm not going to quit. And I'll be honest with you, dude, I've never heard of a person taking the test 20 times.
That's what I've heard. And that was this time last year, bro.
Yeah.
I've been full-time for only like 8 months, 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
That was this time last year. And I look now, obviously my financial situation, the people I have around me and, under me as well to help them in the business. I'm like, dude. It's still mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem real. It doesn't seem real at all.
So let's talk about it. You go full-time.
Yeah.
So we've got that sale put a chunk of money in your pocket to where you're like, okay, I have enough. Well, I imagine, a couple grand to...
So at that time, I've always been a guy to take risk, no matter if it's a good risk or bad risk, obviously. With the financial situation I was in, most of the risk I took probably wasn't good. Mm-hmm. But I knew in this business that I always want to be a part of an opportunity that no matter how hard I work and the amount of efficient work I do, there's no cap on the opportunity I can have. Mm. And that was the biggest thing with the life insurance industry and, getting into the business. And so I knew the money I get back, I'm putting it right back into the business. That's not my money. Yeah. That's, Kelly Vincent LLC, right?
Yeah.
That's the business money.
Where'd you get that thinking from? Was that from your dad? Was that from Holly? Was it a mix?
It was a mix. Mm-hmm. It was a mix. My dad kind of was like my financial advisor a little bit when I first got started, because he saw as soon as I passed the test, he wasn't really for the industry. Mm-hmm. And he was very weary about it, even talking to Holly about it. Mm-hmm. But then once he saw, Holly within a year and a half in the business, going from, a very, kind of a poor situation, living on a really ran down house on the church property with her and William. They moved all the way from Kentucky. Oh, yeah. To California.
Oh, yeah. So for people that don't know, just to give them the story, I mean, Holly and her husband had taken a pastorate position, so Will was the head pastor. Correct. And, when you're a pastor's wife, you're basically, a staff member. Yep. You're in. So living on a property there that was, not in the best condition and not making, great money. They didn't do it for the money. Correct. And, so Holly is doing insurance to try to make up that gap. Yep.
Got their first, really nice home. They have a beautiful home now.
Yeah.
And they got that in like a year and a half. So the moment Dad started seeing the receipts and the results, he started getting like, he was for it 100%. Yeah. And then when he started seeing me make a couple of sales in the situation I was in, he was like, okay, Kelly may have a niche for this, or, he's figuring things out. So let me try to help him, financially start up a business. And that's how we kind of looked at it. I always looked at this opportunity as, yes, this is a job. I got to treat it like a job. But this is also my business.
Yeah, I love that.
And with business, you got to handle the business finances and your finances on the side too.
Of course.
You got to keep them separate.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, dude, I love that. So when you decided to go full time, how much money did you have? Right there. Was it
my name?
$1,500, $2,000, $3,000? What was it? Do you remember?
To be honest, I want to say probably right at 1,000.
Right at 1,000. So
my name.
So you were still taking a risk.
I was taking a risk. I was like, okay, I'm either gonna fall face first, but you know what? At least I'm gonna fall forward this time, because in this business, I can always go back to, working with my dad, get a little cash, invest in business. But I was so hungry for it.
But you were all in. You'd seen what Holly was doing long enough. You're like,
yeah, I was fed up. Yeah.
yeah. And I love it too, I'll say this to people too, because obviously Holly, is a mom. She's got other responsibilities, and I'm sure you were like, dude, I'm a young single guy. Like, I know what I'm doing. I can go. I can figure this out.
Right.
And so, what was that first month like?
Going into full time?
Yeah, going into full time.
So, of course, I had to watch my lead spend because I didn't have a lot of money necessarily. So that week, I was like, I have to make a sale. At that time, I had like maybe $1,500 in commissions coming into my bank, that following week. So I knew, okay, if I fall face first, I got some other money, for the next week and, for the next 2 weeks for leads. I just made sure my quality, dialing, especially for my dialing background, that was kind of my advantage kind of coming into the business, was knowing how to dial. It was just, okay, I got to learn the script, got to make sure I'm saying the right things to set them up for the appointment. So that was huge. Dialing was huge for that first, month full time, so I can set myself up for success, put numbers in my favor, because I knew it wasn't a good closer. I think my close ratio at that point was probably 15 to 20%. So I needed to make sure I set myself up, had numbers in my favor. So I believe at that time I made sure I was having like 25 to 30 appointments on the books.
Sure.
Make sure I'm sitting at least, at that point I was presenting numbers to probably about, probably 15 at the most in a really good week.
Yeah. And what type of leads were you working?
The age.
Yeah. Okay. So
Age
you
leads.
were not spending that much money on age leads. You were putting in, I'm sure, crazy activity. What did your days look like dialing? How many dials were we putting in a day? How many hours were you working?
So at that point, obviously, Holly and Mindy, my mentors at that time, were really big on, schedule. And to me, I was at that point, I was like, I'm hungry enough. I got enough time. I quit all my other jobs. I'm going to work as much as I need to.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a set kind of schedule, but I did work 6 days a week. And I would say every day, Saturday, I'll probably work like 5 hours from like 8 to probably like 3.
Okay.
And then but Monday through Friday, I would just play it by ear. In the morning, I'm setting same day appointments, no matter how late it is, and then just work. I probably worked 10, 12 hours a day at that point.
Yeah.
I knew I needed good repetitions. I needed a lot of it to get to the point, where I'm at today and work on a really good schedule. So at that point, it was just determination and obsession how bad I wanted it.
Yeah.
And I didn't clock in or clock out. I was always, life insurance was everything at that point.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes sense. And I mean, you need to flip it around. And obviously, you're making sales, putting it back into leads. How often were you buying leads?
Every week. I always had kind of a routine. Every Saturday, I was buying leads. At that point, I think I probably spent $1,000 to $1,500 a week on leads.
A week, okay.
So I was making sure I'm making at least 3 sales, or enough to get my profit back, or enough to bare minimum get my money back, so I can invest to the next week.
Yeah. I mean, you had such a healthy way of thinking about it, because you're like, I'm investing in myself.
Yeah.
My skill needs to go up. I mean, you recognize, okay, I have a long way to go in my skill improvement.
Yeah.
I need enough opportunities. When do you feel like it switched from you throwing money back into leads to like, oh, I'm making a pretty decent profit now? Like, I'm keeping a lot of this money. How long were you into the biz?
I would say, so the first month full time, I think I made like 6,000 to 8,000 usually paid at that point in commissions for that month.
A lot of that going back into leads.
A lot of it, of course, going back to the business. Probably about the third and fourth month was kind of the, honestly, learning curve. I knew Holly invested a lot into me. She got me to the point where I had a good foundation, but I needed to invest in myself, even outside the business. So I remember I would call Mike Hervelin. I call him all the time.
Yeah.
Pick his brain on what's my next step. I quit my job. I'm full-time in business. What do I need to focus on? Mindy. Christy Wolf was huge, too, with dialing. And even reached out to Imagine's team, Greg and Andrew at that point. I went to a lock-in probably about 4 months into business. And
I
I was
remember that.
only, I was only like, that was probably my best week was 7,000 submitted, you know, and at the lock-in. And, you know, watching Andrew and Greg and all my other mentors I've reached out to, I made sure that I was trying to network and make connections outside of my people too.
Sure.
Or outside of, you know, Holly, just because for me, I'm a people person.
Yeah.
And when I pick other people's brain, yes, I take it to heart, but I also make sure I apply it too.
Yeah.
And ask them questions like, if you put yourself in my shoes, you know, what would you be doing? And I think that was kind of the huge kind of pivotal point, was reaching out to people, getting out of my comfort zone, learning from other people and applying what I've learned on even the business side of things, and not necessarily the selling, business side of things. How do I need to handle my finances? How do I need to have a good book of business? And then with the good repetitions I was having with appointments and dialing, you know, it all just kind of came together at that point. And I think about my 5th to 7th month in, I started averaging about 10 to 15 thousand worth of commissions for the month. And I was like, okay, things are starting to click.
Yeah.
Things are starting to click. I'm getting probably the most money. I'm playing with money that I've never played before. You know? And, you know, I was starting to put money back in savings, knocking out my debt.
Mm-hmm.
And about 7 to 9 months into the business, I knocked out all my credit card debts, knocked out all my debt except maybe a couple thousand with my car, right? And so I was setting myself up for success, and I was like, okay, there has to be, I know I can make it to the next level.
Yeah.
I'm only 7-8 months into the business. At that time, everybody's hitting Hall of Fame. It was after, you know, the big convention award ceremony, and I'm like, dude, if Minnie can do it, she's pregnant, she had only 2 to 3 days to work a week, and she hit Hall of Fame, she can, I know I can do it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good examples and good leadership in front of me to you know, pick from their brains, you know, get advice, apply it. And so at that point, it was just working nonstop, applying what I'm learning. And then from that point, you know, it started becoming a habit of good quality appointments, good quality sales, and then getting a good cash flow.
Yeah. Dude, that's phenomenal. The last few months, what are you averaging now? What are you typically spending on leads, and what are you writing in business?
So for the past, I would say consistently the past 4 months, I've been averaging about 35 to 40,000 in commissions.
Yeah.
And that's just my personal production.
Yeah.
Now I have, you know, a couple people under me as well, which probably brings me about to like close to 50 to 55 a month there. But my lead spend a week right now is about 25 to close to 3,000
Okay.
a week.
So you're spending about 10 to right around 40. So getting around a
Correct.
4X, which is healthy. And then yeah, let's talk about, you have a team now. So you have a few agents that learning, and I'm sure that is a full circle moment, right? Because you're like, dude, I came through so much struggle, and I'm getting this, and I'm able to help people with the same thing now. How does that feel?
Bro, it feels surreal because, you know, looking at my situation, you know, a year ago, you know, I could never imagine I've been in a situation where people are actually looking up to me. You know what I mean? I never had that, if that makes sense in business. So, yeah, I have Noah Noble. He's a full-time right now. And then I had my girlfriend, Cameron. She was working for me about 6 months, and now she works for me as an admin and helps me out in the business for training and down in a little bit as well.
Yeah. Talk about a switch. They hear Cameron set the appointment, and then Kelly shows up.
Oh, yeah. No, they get the sweetheart, the appointment set, and then all of a sudden they get this straightforward, Kelly Vincent, and
I love it.
And they're like, oh, that doesn't look like who I talked to.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's my business card. Yeah, this is Kelly Vincent you're talking to, not Cameron. But anyways.
Talk about a bait switch.
Yeah, exactly. But we got a really good dynamic chemistry going with the business. At this point, me and you've talked about it. It's kind of, okay, we got the personal production down. We're trying to work on efficiency now and, time management. Got people under me, getting more people under me that are in contracting right now. I haven't necessarily been focusing on building,
right?
But to me, that's kind of the next step, relocating and building.
Yeah.
It's definitely my next step right now.
Of course.
Business.
Well, dude, you're at a great spot. I mean, a year in, you've got incredible momentum. You know, you put in
Momentum, yes.
the really hard work, and you know, you get in a good cash flow, and obviously you have great mentors, both in your dad and in Holly.
Yep.
You know, helping you, you know, think of things as a business, so you're not out there, you know, buying crazy stuff. And so with that, which is awesome, dude. And you're able to give those same lessons to people coming up. What do you feel like over this last year, if you could kind of boil it down to 1, 2, 3 lessons that you've learned that help you to overcome and be successful? If you could give that to other people, what would you say those were?
I'll say number one would probably be control. Control of my mental, control of my environment, if that makes sense. Obviously, through the adversity we spoke about, you know, in the beginning of the podcast, like, it was very hard to keep my head on straight.
Yeah.
It was very hard. And especially me being so young and, you know, moving out of my family, my parents' house, and taking care of all the expenses, you know. It was a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility. I was making sure that, of course, you know, my relation with God was good, focusing on my spiritual side as well as, you know, the mental and, you know, even my health too. You know, I'm in the gym as well, you know, every day. I care about my eating habits and even things outside the business so I can create good, healthy habits that will correlate into the business as well.
Of course.
And, you know, I believe that 100%. But having control of trying to control the environment I'm in, you know, even that can correlate to even appointments, like, in, you know, dialing in business. If you can't control, you know, your emotions inside the business, how do you expect to, you know, help and not necessarily control, but how do you expect to be the best agent for that client to find what needs they have, and just at the end of the phone calls, you have the solution for them. So, you know, which out of the three you're most comfortable with at that point.
Yeah.
And so I been correlating that. Those are kind of that's the biggest, you know, number one lesson I've learned is just having control of yourself, the environment you're in, and trying to have control over the people, you know, you're working with or even on the phone with as well. You know, that's my biggest thing. Number two would probably be, you know, the financial side of things too.
Sure.
Making sure that I keep the business, the cash flow in the business, make sure that's on point, make sure I pay myself a salary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the first 6 months of the business, I didn't really care how much I got paid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just made sure that I have money for leads, I have money for the bills. So it was kind of like the first 2 weeks of the month, that's for rent, car payment, insurance, you know, and then the rest is solely profit for my business, right? Obviously, there's more, you know, details about the financial side, but I always made sure that I'm making good financial decisions outside the business for my personal life as well as my business.
Well, let's highlight on that, dude,
Yeah.
because that is a mistake that a lot of agents
100%,
make, and
100%.
I'm in there too.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being 4 or 5 months in, seeing the most money I've ever seen in my life deposited, and thinking, this is my money. And like going out and spending it, and then a month later being in a tight financial position. And it's like, wait, what? How am I making the most money? I'm touching the most money I've ever in my entire life.
100%.
And I'm stressed about finances. Like, that threw me for a loop.
And being stressed about your finances, that is always heavy weight on you, even when
Yes.
you're working too. Because then there's that pressure of, I gotta make this sale. And it's almost to the point, people can hear that desperation over the phone. 100%, I believe that. God's been really good, blessing my business and able to keep me having, you know, kind of progressively trying to gain knowledge and wisdom and understanding for the business and financial side too. And, you know, I've been blessed that all 12 months in the business so far, I've never been in a situation where people had to buy me leads. And I always made sure I had a reserve, no matter what. Now, there's been times where chargebacks come up, you know,
Sure.
expenses, and, you know, I didn't make a couple sales, right? You know, there's been some hard times. But I've been very fortunate, you know, God's been good where I've never been able to actually had to step away from the business
Yeah.
to focus on my money.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, it's
Very
because of
fortunate.
what you're doing. Yeah, I mean,
Very fortunate.
you've been really smart about what you paid yourself. Is what I tell everyone coming in. I probably have this conversation, I don't know, at least once a day.
Yeah.
You know, with the agent who's like newer agent who's wondering about their finances. I'll make sure you figure out whatever your monthly expenses are, and you only pay yourself that for the first
Yep.
year, and then everything else goes back into the business, and that has. You know, you get chargebacks. You have some weeks that, excuse me, aren't great. But you're able to overcome those things because you never over leveraged yourself.
Right.
So, control, money, anything else?
Time management.
Time management.
Time management.
And talk to people about that. When you say time management, are you talking about, time you wake up, time you go to bed, time you work? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. So time management, obviously you got to work a schedule. You got to have a kind of a non-negotiable schedule for yourself.
Okay.
And even that kind of ties into the financial side too. That's something my dad taught me as well. Cause he started an electrical business, in 2002. And so he had to go through the rough times of not being profitable, months at a time and just investing back to the business. And if he had a good month, he never took a 2-week long vacation the next week.
Right.
You better best believe if things are good, this is what my dad always told me, and it's always in my head, is when times are good in the business, stick it out. Ride the wave as long as you can. Now, if times are bad, you ride that wave as fast as you can. You try to burn through it as fast as you can to get back to the good waves.
Yeah.
But you never want to dip out when things are going good.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Obviously, the time, 12 months in the business, I've been fortunate where, I can take a week off. Like 2 months ago for my birthday, I took a week off. Me and Cameron, went out of the country and, had a good time, stepped away from the business. But even when I come back from, a weekend off or a couple of days off, that Monday, I'm working harder than I ever worked before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Get back into the swing of things.
That real quick.
Yeah.
That might be one of the most valuable lessons we share in this, because that is the exact mistake that I made my first 5 months in this business.
I remember you mentioning that, yeah.
Dude, I had a big influx of money, more than I'd ever made. I mean, more than I'd made in years. In 1 month, I saw come in. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, things are going good. This is a great time to take a break. Like, I don't need to work as hard. And I took a few weeks off, and came back and had burned through a lot of that money, unfortunately, just very stupidly. And it was then a rough period for a while. And that hurt. And I see so many people do that in this business. We're like, oh, things are good. I'm at a good place in my momentum. I can sell. Cash flow is great. Lead flow is great. Let me go take a big break. And it's like, man, you don't understand what being a business owner is. And hearing your perspective from your dad, Kelly, I think people who've never been business owners before think that insurance, they think that, this is just a negative about insurance, that you have to be fiscally responsible. And you don't, this is unique, but you saw that from your dad, who was in a completely different industry.
Totally different, but
the principles were the same.
The principles are the same as a business owner. 100%.
Yeah.
So I always leaned on dad, and Holly learned that from my dad too. So, we're very fortunate. We have, a good father that, set himself up right and, stayed true to his principles.
Yeah, he got to speak at our Nashville lock-in. I love that. That was really cool. So what did we say there? I'll go back. Control, money, time management.
Control finances, time
management. So let's go back into that. Keep explaining that.
Time management?
Yeah.
So, of course, making sure if we take breaks, we're coming back, we're pretty much doubling down. Making sure in the good times, you're riding the good waves as long as you can. And when you hit a bad wave, you're riding as fast as you can.
Yeah. And how do you, in this industry, do you ride a bad wave fast? Explain that to people.
So a lot of people can have a, kind of bittersweet kind of perspective to this, but how I look at it, on those bad waves, I double down. I double down. So I'm going through more appointments.
Yeah.
So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm going through more calls. So I'm going through more meetings. So I'm I'm dialing more.
Like you're having a bad time where you're not closing. You're like, oh, well, I need more leads, more appointments, more shots.
Yep, 100%. Get odds back in my favor because, of course, there's a time where it's like, okay, maybe it's not just a bad wave. Maybe I need to fix my process. So during those bad waves, my biggest thing, probably key thing to get through them faster was, okay, I'm doubling down, but not also am I doubling down. I'm reaching out to people, not to question my process, but to see their process. Because maybe I need some momentum mentally, because I haven't made a sale, in like 2 days or a week, right? So let me listen to people that are hot, that are making sales left and right. You know what I mean? Shadow them so I can have that kind of, because that energy, that momentum, truly helps whenever you're going through a bad time.
Yeah.
And I, 100% believe that. And so listening to people, reaching out to people that are succeeding during my bad wave, but at the same time, I'm putting the work myself to try to ride that wave as fast as I can and try to be profitable. Of course, with lead spend, I'm not like have a bad week. I'm spending 3 times as much as leads now. I'm still making sure my profit margin is good with the leads I buy at the same time. But at the same time, I'm doubling down.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, that's a great lesson because I think sometimes people in business will have a little bit of tough times and they will start really doubting themselves. And it's almost like a feeling like it's a knee-jerk reaction to pull back.
Right.
And that's really bad because, okay, now you're going to give yourself less opportunity to overcome. And you don't need less, you need more. Yeah. So that's a great lesson to folks. Yeah. So what are you at so far for this year?
So right now I'm well over 250.
Okay.
I should be right at the end of the next 2 weeks, probably right at 270. I should be at 270.
That's awesome. So you're well on your way. So obviously President's Club is something you are on track for. Any other goals for the rest of this year that you're trying to fulfill?
So with me and Cameron right now, want to be able to have the chemistry to help train people and to bring people onto the business. We're going to try to get into the warm marketing side of recruiting and also, potentially relocating, hopefully by the end of this year, if not, coming up real soon.
Yeah, so, for sure. And then if people want to work with you, Kelly, how do they get a hold of you?
Instagram DM, Kelly X Vincent, and then, phone number as well is attached to the Instagram, 270-702-2812. Yeah.
Dude, it's been phenomenal having you in today. I think people are going to watch this. They're going to get a mix of, one, a lot of motivation just hearing your story, the things that you've overcome and where you are now. 2, they're going to get some great business principles that they may not have had. Right. And then just some really great ways to structure their business, overcome failure. If you, as a parting shout, if you could give one thing, one admonition to people watching to be successful in this industry, something you just wish that they would have inside, what would it be?
You got to have ambition. You got to have ambition coming into the business. You got to stay dedicated. You're going to go through, roller coaster of emotions and maybe roller coaster of finances, but you need to make sure, those 3 things: control your finances, and time management as well. Those are the big 3 things, big principles, I try to live by and set a good example for
100%.
my people.
Dude, that's phenomenal. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you watch this, commit these things to memory. These are phenomenal principles. God bless. Have a good one.